Welcome back. So this lesson we're going to do configuration, because next step is going to be actually working with the Angular frontend and start building our web application to start sending requests to the backend. But in order to do that, we need to set up a lot of configuration for our development environment first, and later on for a production environment. But let's just start with development environment. So this lesson we're going to focus on the web API, the startup file, where we're going to try and configure all the stuff we built until now. We're going to make all of that plumbing for that, so that we know when we want to use an interface of the type service for products, we're going to use a certain implementation. When we want to use the repository interface, we're going to use a certain implementation. And what database do we want to use? We need to set all of that up this lesson right here. So let's try and do it. I'll jump into the code, and we want to start in the startup file, and there's already a lot pre-configured for you. Now we could do this test driven, but I'm actually not going to do that. I'm going to go back later and do some integration testing of this startup file, but not right now. What I want to do right now instead is just get started. And the first thing I want to do is just add our different dependency injections that we have in our system. So if we start with the controller, if we go into the controller, we can see we have an iProduct service dependency injection right here. Now, right now, the system doesn't know what implementation we're using. It just knows that it needs to have this interface in order to work. Now, of course, we want to use the certain implementation of our actual product service from the domain layer right here. We want to use this product service in our system. So we need to explain that in the startup file now, that we want to use that specific implementation when we're looking at this specific interface right here. Again, the reason that the interfaces are so powerful with the dependency injection is it's very easy to do unit testing of this, as I've shown you in previous tutorials. So if we go back now to the actual startup file, the first thing we want to do is just add scoped, meaning that we want to add, in this case, scope, we want to add our first dependency injection class right here. So I'll do it by doing like the generic right here, and then in there I'll start by putting in what do we want to actually make, what do you want to bind together, what interface do you want to bind together. And I want to bind the product interface right here, iProduct service. That one, I want to bind that together with the actual product service implementation class. Let's see if we can find it. Here it is. So now I've bound these two together. So on runtime, when the system now looks for an iProduct service inside any of the classes we're using, it's going to go and get this implementation right now. Meaning, if you later on find out that you want to change the implementation class to something else, you might have made a new class that has the same interface. You can easily change it here just by adding a new implementation right here. And that'll make it work with the new implementation class. So it's a very powerful thing on runtime. You can go and change classes depending on what you need in your system. Extremely powerful. Now, the product service, if we go into that one, also needs to have a dependency injection right here for the iProduct repository. So again, we need to make a choice now in the configuration. Do we actually want to use a certain repository? And yes, of course we do. In our infrastructure layer, we did this data access one right here. Here we have the product repository right here. And that's the one we want to use in our solution, so we can call the find all with the DB context. So that's the one we want to use. So again, let's go back to our startup file and make another line. We'll just make it before. That's just the way I normally do it, because it's easy to see what I need. Like first I need the iProduct repository, then that needs the service, right? So that's why I'm doing it like this. So let's make the product repository right here, iProduct repository, and that one should of course now get the product repository in our system right here. So there we go. Now they are bound together, these two, and this is again setting up dependency injection. So now we have all of that set up. That was step one. Dependency injection. Now we're going to continue, because I also want to set up the database in my system right here. So that's the next thing we want to do, but we'll do that in the next lesson. So next lesson we'll set up the database info right here, and then we're actually ready to start using this. So see you next time. We'll have even more fun. Bye.